A warm welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle, and we're stepping back just a few years, 6 or 7 to be precise. We're joined today by former Notts County left back Blair Adams. 55 goals, 55 games, one goal. Blair, up in your native northeast. Delighted you can join us for the show.
Yeah, pleased to be on. Obviously listened to a few of the podcasts and I'm a fan of the show, so I'm pleased to be on to be able to share my story. Thanks for having me.
And it's a delight. You'll probably be teaching me how to conduct this interview, given that you did a degree in sports journalism while you were playing at Notts, I believe.
That's right, yeah. So I had a two-year course through Staffordshire Uni. Not quite at your levels yet. I'm sure one day I'll work towards it. But yeah, I enjoyed it while I was at the club, and I worked closely with some of the local journalists there, and enjoyed it and learnt a lot. And as I say, I felt it helped with me football a little bit. Kind of something to focus on and switch off away from Notts.
Yeah, well, friends of our magazine show, which we do twice a week, who are regular guests. Lee Curtis, who you would know well. Lee sends his regards. And also Charlie Slater, who I believe you knew, and he's kind of now replaced the one and the only Colin Slater. Colin's kind of got into a little bit of retirement. And so Charlie commentates on our game. So they both send their best wishes to you.
Yeah, as I say, I've worked with both of them, and they were brilliant help. They really kind of opened the doors to everything that I needed at that time. And I'll be honest, I've kind of lost touch with them a little bit. Still follow the club quite a fair bit, and almost tempted to get in touch with Lee a few weeks ago when it was all up in the air with the league. But thankfully, obviously, it's going ahead. So that's probably one of them that I'm going to have to work on, keeping in touch with these people, because as I say, they were around that time, they were brilliant help for that course. So I'll say thanks over this, but I'll definitely have to get in touch.
Absolutely. Now, your footballing career, it's kind of turning full circle. You've got a great accent there. You've never lost your accent, clearly. So, starting out in Sunderland's academy ranks, now playing and coaching with South Shields, run by, I think it's fair to say, a very ambitious owner who has big plans for the club, and managed by someone I know from my time at Leicester City, Graham Fenton. So you're looking back on life full circle. What do you make of it all? What do you make of it all, looking back over the last 20 years or so, from when you was a young 9-10-year-old? Apologies, were you a Mackham or were you in Newcastle?
Well, my dad's a big Man United fan, but I'm kind of leaning towards. I've always leaned towards Sunderland after coming through their academy. So
yeah,
but yeah, what do I make of it all? It's been a journey. I think looking back and knowing how, obviously playing with a lot of younger lads now with South Shields, and having a few years behind us, I know how tough it can be to kind of get into that level, League 1, 2 and above. So I actually look back with a little bit of pride. Probably could have and should have played higher for longer. But there's lots of things that happen, as you've well heard with some of your former guests, and I suppose lost me way a little bit, lost me a love for the game, and that's kind of brought me home. And to be honest, the last three years at my hometown club have probably been, other than maybe one or two elsewhere, my favourite years in football. So the main thing now for me is just enjoying it, and that's definitely what I'm doing at the minute. So I am, as I say, I'm proud of the kind of career that I had, but possibly the happiest I've been in terms of my career now. So
that's good to hear. I remember when you arrived, so you'd gone through the ranks at Sunderland, You'd moved to Coventry, big club. And I remember when you signed for Notts, everyone thought, good, that is a really good signing for us. And you were clearly a very talented player, technically very good. But it was quite a turbulent time at Notts. We heard from Roy Carroll. We've had people like Greg Tempest on talking about some of the mental health challenges that he faced during that period. There were clearly so many things going on, a huge churn of players, a huge churn of managers. If we wind the clock back, you left Coventry and it would have been Shaun Derry that signed you. So just take us through that. How did you end up at Notts, and was it Shaun giving you a call out the blue? What happened?
So I'd had my best season actually at Coventry. I'd played over 40 games, but it was a turbulent time there as well. We'd been playing at Northampton. The club had went into administration, minus 10 or minus 12 before the season, before the ball had been kicked. So I'm no stranger to like a bit of a turbulent club. But yeah, I had a strong season there, and because of kind of the money troubles, they let the majority of the first team go. Some big names in there, there was Callum Wilson, who's obviously doing really well. Yeah. Cyrus Christie, is he at Forest now?
Yeah, yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Well, some big names in there who were kind of let go that year or the following season. But yeah, my agent at the time, I actually had another year there, but Stephen Presley, who was in charge, had said, "Listen, we're trying to offload a few. Our budget's been cut, and we're going to go with youth." So he said, "You could stay, but you're not going to be involved." And at that time, I'd had maybe, I'm not sure, 75, maybe less games under my belt. Not, I wouldn't say I was established at all. In as a footballer, if you like. So I wanted to just go out and play, and my agent at the time had said Notts County were interested. Alan Sheehan was leaving again for, I think, I'm not sure what the story was, but possibly break down with the offers for a new contract. So I knew I was coming in as like the first choice left back and would play every game. So that was the appeal, and I'd played against Notts County a few times before that. I remember writing actually about it in one of my weekly columns about how good the atmosphere was there at Meadow Lane one time. So there was a couple of things that were just stood out for us once that kind of expressed the interest, and then it just came about pretty quick after that. I came in and met Shaun, met Greg, and would sorted out the kind of ending the contract at Coventry and going there.
Notts had stayed up last game of the season, and in the Shaun Derry big interview that we'd done, Shaun's obviously a Notts County fan. When he grew up as a boy in Nottingham, meant an awful lot to him. But the club had kind of cut the cloth, and a lot of the senior players from that season had been released. We'd had the two loan signings returning that had been very influential, Jack Grealish and Callum McGregor. And so you came in as part of a new group of players. Roy Carroll, I think, would have come in at the same time as you. Shaun was very passionate about the club. And everything started so well, didn't it? And I'm presuming in that first month, 2, 3, 4 months up till about Christmas, jobs are good, isn't it?
Yeah, the first 6 months at the club were brilliant. I mean, we had an unbelievable team spirit. There was quite a lot of lads from the northeast there, lads who I grew up with. So from a personal point of view, I was settled. My girlfriend, now wife, moved down to Nottingham with me, moved in. So I actually loved living in Nottingham. It was great, and we had, like I say, we had a great group. We had a good coffee club after training at the Costa in Mapperley. So lots of good things were happening on the pitch. However, it was a little bit stop-start for me. I remember struggling with a quad injury early on, so I was kind of in and out. And then I got to the Chesterfield game, which you'd mentioned, where I got my first goal and kind of got into this back into the team then and started playing regularly after that. But yeah, after 6 months. As you know, and as a few have touched on, quite a few of those players, Louis Lang, Stephen McLaughlin, they all kind of went back to the parent clubs, and the wheels came off a little bit and started struggling to get points on the board.
What was Shaun like as manager for you?
I had a little bit of a kind of tough time with him, to be honest. I had a spell where he was really good for us in terms of before every game. I'll be honest, Paul, I'm a big confidence player, or I was at the time. So my best spell in the team was when Shaun was give like praise before games. I remember we played Fleetwood away before the game, and he'd said, You're one of my big players at the minute. Keep doing what you're doing." And I was in good form at the time. But then there was other times where I've kind of had meetings with him, and he said, "There's people doubting me at the club," and it probably wasn't what I needed at that moment in time. I was probably needing a little bit of a arm around the shoulder. So yeah, it was a bit of a struggle at times, to be honest. Very intense, very, very intense. But what was good about him is he had Greg as his assistant, who really took the edge off him and would make a joke, and it like lifted the place. Greg was brilliant. Like, he was absolutely brilliant. He made the place a good place to.
We had Roy Carroll on only a week or two ago. What was it like being left back with him in the sticks behind you?
Yeah, it was good. I remember one game I'd been playing in front of him for a good while. Like, it must have been a month or two at least, and he was calling us Adam. We were playing at Meadow Lane. And I've turned around and said, "Roy, I'm called Blair, man." So we're in the middle of a game, and he's going, all right, you're called Blair. Well done. Like, saying all that. We call us Blair all the time, in the training ground. So I don't know why. Obviously, I've got Adams on the back of my shirt. So he's obviously like, I don't know. He's seeing that and started calling us Adam. But this is in the middle of a game. It was strange, but yeah, he was brilliant. He was always talking, organising his defence, and he was fan favourite for a reason. He'd done really well. So
yeah, it was a very illuminating interview with him. Actually, he spoke very, very well. Told us a lot of things, that we didn't know, and a lot of feedback from fans. And clearly none of us knew. Well, I didn't at the time, as you would have seen from the show, that his dad was from Nottingham and a Notts fan, and that was something even the players didn't know. We were just talking about it before we started the show. You and none of the players had no idea either.
Nah, not really. To be honest, Roy was quite. He was outgoing, but he never really spoke much about his personal life, to be honest. And he didn't tend to socialise with the lads, which is fine. Obviously, every man, every player for himself. He was dead popular within the change room, but he just kind of kept to himself, to be honest. Which, as I say, is every person's different, and he's probably been out with some high profile players, so he might have not fancied coming out with us at the time.
You've already mentioned this. Being a professional footballer is a very transient business now. If you get a 2-year contract and see it out, you're doing well, aren't you? And so therefore, often players are not in a position to be able to move into the area, the location. They will commute, sometimes quite long distances. But you've already said you moved in to Mapperley, nice part of Nottingham, know it well. So you kind of did it properly and integrated yourself into the local community and the local area. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd had a few loans from Sunderland, and I'd always moved down. I moved to Coventry, I moved to Nottingham. At that time, as I say, I wasn't really an established League One, League Two football. I was still trying to build my career. So I was all in at the time. As I say, my girlfriend moved down. And I loved it. Like, I enjoyed living there. It was just a shame that for whatever reason things didn't properly work out.
You mentioned the coffee club in Mapperley. So who were the other members of that then? Who was up there with you?
Well, we had Adam Campbell. He came down in my second season. Nobza, Louis Lang, Steve McGotten used to come. We had a few. Greg, Fab. There was a lot of us. They used to the waitresses, and they used to see us come in and go, "Oh no, 12 lattes." They used to just take over the Costa there.
Yeah, I've been in there. Shouldn't you have just been a black Americano, no sugar?
No, yeah, we trained hard. We used to go full fat milk lattes.
So the first few games, you'd mentioned you had an injury which interrupted, but you were first choice left back. Games were being won. I think from what Shaun had said to us, it was no secret the club had kind of pulled back the overall playing budget from where it had been. And then I think there was much talk about replacing those loan players, getting a few more players in, and there was an opportunity to develop. But it kind of went completely the other way, didn't it? And I'm guessing this is what you're alluding to with confidence. Greg Tempest spoke about it was quite a challenging time for him and others within the club.
Yeah, I think, well, from a personal point of view, I just kind of struggled to get off to a flyer with the injury, and then I had a sit down with Shaun and Greg and just saying, like, this is strange for me, kind of thing. I'd never really been out with niggles. I'd played regularly, and I knew they'd brought us in to play every week. So I was a bit early on. I was just a bit disappointed and struggling to get going, and that probably knocked my confidence a little bit early on. But as I say, I got into the swing a little bit. I had a good run of form. He dropped us for one game. We played Scunthorpe away, Johnson's Paint at the time, and I'd slipped, which led to a goal, and I just struggled to get back into the game. And then he dropped us for the next game, and I came on at half. It was Barnsley. We played Barnsley, and I had a very good second half. And I remember kind of giving us a bit of praise after that, which probably set us off onto a good bit of form. Like I say, a little bit of praise did go a long way. I'm a little bit more experienced now, so times have changed a little bit. But at that time, that made me feel on top of the world, and made a huge difference when it came to game days.
The season started to tail away, and ultimately it led to Shaun losing his job. And there'd kind of been, I think, an environment, well, there's no way we can go down because we've started well, we've got a few results. And I think the owners felt that whatever they did, it will be all right. But clearly it wasn't, and there was a slide. Roy Carroll spoke to us about not bringing in other players to strengthen it. And he said that was, in his opinion, a big, mistake, for want of a better word, but by the owners. What was it like for you? How did you see that as the season panned out and started to taper off?
Well, I grew up with Louis Lang, who was a big player in those first 6 months. So we were always asking him what the latest was, and he was saying, I think we're going to end up going back. So we must have lost 3 or 4 players who were playing every week, which at the time was the spine of the team. And I think as you mentioned, Roy touched on it, where they brought young lads in who were in kind of reserve teams from higher levels, who didn't understand or hadn't played league football, where the physicality is just a different animal altogether. It took me 2 loans from Sunderland to deal with that. My first loan was a real eye opener.
Charlton,
Brentford,
yeah.
So started on fire there, and then quickly faded once, like away games where you're playing against experienced lads who can bully kids. Really, I really struggled with it, and on top of homesickness and things like that, I struggled. And then my first kind of meeting at Sunderland was get us back out. I need to experience more, and had a half a season at Northampton where that I kind of got to terms with physicality and learned how to play men's football, really. So yeah, those lads who come in, it was kind of a race for them to pick that up quick, and ultimately we didn't do that, and results started to slide.
Now, around about this time, was it this year or the second year where you got an interest and were studying to do your sports journalism degree?
That was I started that as soon as I'd signed, so it was me within that first year, yeah.
So did that give you a different insight into things, working alongside the journalists who were writing about you? There's Lee Curtis giving you a mark out of 10, on a Monday morning, and but you have an interest in that sphere, so you kind of see both sides of it.
Yeah, well, those are the kind of things as a footballer you have to. Well, I avoided. I wouldn't look at things like that, because that's you could either. Obviously, if Lee was to give us a 8 or a 9, then great. But if he was to give us a 3 or a 4, when actually I thought I was a 7 or 8, that's gonna mess with my confidence. So things like that early on, yes, I probably would have looked at. But once I was playing regularly, I tried to avoid things like that as much as I could.
So where did the interest and the motivation come from to do this degree?
I suppose just reading, the apps and kind of following local journalists, really. Always kind of had a slight interest in it, and then this course came up through the PFA, and a bit of pressure from my mum as well, actually, because she was always, you need to have something to fall back on. So yeah, it was just a few things, but my mum was kind of pressured that just to have something while I was playing. But as I said, it helped us a lot. Just being able to switch off, get a bit of work done, not think about relegation worries or anything like that. It was a good switch off for us at the time.
You used to have your own column, didn't you? Newspaper column.
Yeah, I had a weekly one in the Nottingham Post, so I was kind of dissecting each result, to be honest. So it got a little tougher towards the end. I'm not sure if I ended up dropping it for a while after results were going poorly, but
did Lee let us into a secret? Did Lee ghostwrite that for you? Did you write that yourself?
No, I would write myself, and then obviously
Good.
He would proofread it. If he felt any changes were needed, then he would make the changes. Yeah. But generally, he was pretty positive with feedback. It was my opinion at the end of the day. That's what I was writing about. It was the games, and he was quite happy to put that to print.
Was there any conflict of interest, or was it difficult for you when the club was losing a few games and you're writing your own column? There's a manager, there's other people within the club. How did you cope with that, or address that, so to speak? Because it's quite difficult. It's difficult enough for someone like Lee Curtis, not to be deemed to be too critical or too positive about the club. But when you are inside the club, and this is something that you are physically writing yourself, that's not an easy balancing act.
Yeah, Shaun was pretty supportive of it, to be honest. I had a chat with him before I'd signed up to it. He was supportive of it. I'm not sure if I was as regular as I think, looking back, because I don't think it would have been a good idea to be writing regularly when results were poorly. But remember, we had to keep a blog, and we had to prove that there was visitors to this website, and I never promoted through social media because I obviously, just in case it was about Notts County and things, and I didn't want it to attract kind of fans to give us stick for it, really.
Yeah.
So I only kind of posted on my private social media, and it would only get 50 to 100 views, but that was enough for the course. I've always been a little bit reluctant to. I don't tend to use Twitter and things like that now. As the years have gone by, I've just stopped using it and keep everything private now. I'm pretty reserved anyway. I like to keep a low profile if I can. This is going against everything that I've been.
We had a lot of the lads. We've had and Greg Tempest was very honest, as you would have seen his, and his family, a lot of other people, teammates, that attracted a lot of interest, not just among Notts County fans, but the whole of Nottingham. PFA were interested in that. So these are an opportunity to, discuss, debate, inform and entertain in a managed environment. So clearly, if there's anything you do want to say or don't want to say, the floor is yours throughout this interview. Just want to pick up on, you mentioned Louis Lang, and I remember when he first came. I mean, he looked the business. He was a very, very influential part of that winning run. He looked a quality centre half. So you would go back with him to the days in the Northeast, yeah?
Yeah, it's kind of must have been 14, 15 when I first met Louis.
Yeah.
He came to Hartlepool as well. We both did really. Had a tough season at Hartlepool when we first signed there. This is the thing with football. So Langy was obviously doing brilliant at Notts. The fans loved him. Shaun loved him. Greg loved him. The players loved him. And then Forest or Notts, whatever happened, he's ended up going back when he's probably in the form of life. And then since then he's struggled to establish himself in a team, and I'm sure you won't mind us saying that. I still speak to Langy now, but it's that kind of a bit of luck. If Notts had have backed Shaun with those players and kept him in, who's to say he wouldn't have been in play of the season, team of the season, if we were doing as well as we were in those first 5 or 6 months. He was playing every week, keeping clean sheets. He was doing really well. So sometimes just little things like that, decisions that are out of your hands, can impact a player's career in a huge way, which I think I'm fair in saying has been the case with Langy. I hope he doesn't mind us saying that if he ever listens.
No, I remember he was outstanding. No two ways about it. He was outstanding. I think he came back to Notts. I'm looking at my son now.
Second
spell, he wasn't as good. We all thought when he come back to South, that's a great. I think it was under John Sheridan. Yeah, I think. But he didn't look probably that close to the levels he was able to attain when he first came to the club.
Yeah, and again, that's a different manager who's probably not nurtured him like Shaun and Greg did. Greg was absolutely brilliant with young players, and obviously Shaun was as well. Langy was he loved playing for Shaun Derry. So again, he was playing every week, doing well, to then go back out of his control. was probably tough for him, and little setbacks like that can impact players massively. And he's obviously come back under a new manager who may not have rated him as well, or you never know. It might have been more the club bringing him in than the manager. So you don't know the stories behind it, really. I don't know. But for whatever reason, on his second spell, he might not have been as strong as his first.
So results are tapering. Shaun loses his job. There are something like half a dozen games. I think it was a bit protracted about Ricardo Moniz coming in, wasn't it? He was offered it, then couldn't take it, then they offered him it again and he came in. So what's going through your mind and the rest of the squad when Shaun is relieved of his duties and in comes Ricardo Moniz?
Bizarre. When you hear names or hear the appointment, you obviously do a little bit of research. It was just a bizarre decision, and I would agree with your guest who've been on your show. If Shaun had stayed, we would have done the job. It was a strange time when Ricardo came in. Strange time. We had one meeting for about 2 hours where we were watching 500 goals from Dutch footballers or something silly like that, which had no relevance to the situation we're in. And Roy touched on it as well in his interview. We're players that are playing in League 2 or League 1 for a reason. We're not Johan Cruyff. So watching videos, it was just nonsense, to be honest. As you can tell, I wasn't his biggest fan. So yeah, well, obviously we got relegated. It got to the summer.
Let's just focus. The final game was Gillingham, wasn't it? And
yeah,
we can still stay up. You were playing you at left back.
Yeah.
Where I think we were 1-0 up, aren't we, with a few minutes to go, and we end up losing 3-1.
Yeah.
What was that day like?
Tough, really tough. Obviously, nobody wants a relegation on the CV, and after being in such a strong position at Christmas, it was really difficult to take. Took a long time to recover from. A little bit of frustration as well, having left Coventry and then getting relegated the following season when they were doing reasonably well. I don't recall where they finished that year. I think they ended up getting relegated actually a year or two after, but it was just frustrating. And obviously a lot of things change within clubs when you go down. A lot of people left, big players, friends who I was close to. Your personal situation changes in terms of financial things. So it was a really tough time, and it was tough to take. And yeah, it just took a little bit of time to recover from, I suppose.
There was a complete transformation in culture, as I guess you might expect from bringing in a Dutch coach that clearly wants to play a certain way, brings in a lot of players, Dutch players, Belgium, that he would be, I guess, more comfortable with and his philosophy. So how does this leave you and the existing, if you like, British players in the group?
Well, I was probably in a fortunate position in that he brought a lot of players in, but none of them were really left backs. Thierry came in, but really I think he seen himself as a centre half. So I was in probably a better position than a few others. I didn't help myself though, because in the summer I was exploring options to stay in League One, and Ricardo wasn't happy about it. I remember I was out walking the dog and he rang up asking why I hadn't told him about it. So kind of got off on the wrong foot. That being said, I went back. I always look after myself. So pre-season, I was flying, started really well. So I kind of improved the relationship a little bit. But again, I think I might have missed the first 2 games of that season. My first game was Mansfield. We lost 2-1, I think. So I was struggling with injuries then as well.
I remember we had Stanley Abora on the show. We had Ricardo as well, and Ricardo is probably one of the most listened to shows that we've done, and he would talk a lot about DNA. He spoke very, very well, but clearly it was always going to be a challenge because it's a results-based business, isn't it? And if a manager doesn't get results, it doesn't matter who they are, they're not going to be at that club for very long. And having failed to keep Notts up and losing in the manner at Gillingham, it was always going to be under the cosh to be getting results very quickly at the start of the following season. Stanley Abora said to us he thought that the Mansfield game was quite a seminal moment in the sense that he and the other Dutch players, Stanley's a Belgian, but he said, we knew it would be like a longer ball approach in England. He said, but after we played Mansfield, we just all looked at each other and said, I don't believe this. We're going to find this hard because we don't know what to do. This is completely kind of alien to us as to the type of football we're going to need to compete and succeed against.
Yeah, I remember Julian as well. Julian Jenner, he'd actually played for Ricardo before, and it might have been after the Mansfield game actually, or definitely not long after. He had a chat with Ricardo to say he was struggling with the 2 games a week and needed a rest. And then after that, he didn't play. He hardly played. So, it was a little bit of honesty from him, really. He's saying, I need a break. I'm struggling with the intensity of the English leagues. And Ricardo hardly played him after that. But I just think there was Roy touched on it again. There was a huge squad. There was a lot of players there. So it was it was a strange time, to be honest. Real strange time. But another thing that happened in that summer, actually. So I was actually at Stafford for like a 2-week block.
University
so I was traveling. Yeah, sorry, at the uni. So I was training every day. And Guy Branston was at the club at this time. I don't know if it must have been this summer. So anyway, he's tweeted about Reece Sharp. Reece Sharp came in as a left back. He must have been 19 or 20 at the time. So Guy's tweeted, and he's got thousands of followers on there as well, saying about Reece. And he said, Blair Adams can't boss Chuba from like Reece Sharp can. So Reece has obviously played against whoever Chuba was playing for at the time in a reserve game. This is an employee of Notts County tweeting about his players. So obviously I'm furious about it. I've rang Guy. He hasn't been at the club very long at this point, and I've said this is really unprofessional from you. You shouldn't be tweeting about your players like this. And I don't want to. I obviously can't repeat what he said, but he's basically told us to go to the stadium to have a fight with, basically, in a nutshell. So it was just, the whole time was just bizarre. So he's hung up on us anyway, and then I've not spoken to him until on a pre-season, and I've went to speak to him straight away, and he kind of just brushed it off. Never really spoke to him after that. But at the time, it was after a relegation. This happening in the summer, and I'd mentioned about exploring other options and to try and stay in League One. So I was a bit unsettled at the time, and when there's employees of the club tweeting about the players like that, I just kind of lost my head a little bit with it. But yeah, I went off on a tangent a little bit there. I can't remember what your last question was.
Hey, I think it was nor can I. But look, don't be worried about being critical of Guy Branston. You are on very, very safe ground with every Notts County fan listening to this podcast. And I think there was clearly a huge disconnect between some of the players that Ricardo Moniz was wanting to recruit and the players that Guy Branston had been kind of tasked to recruit by the owners. And, you know, it led to a hugely bloated squad, didn't it? Probably very few, there seemed to be a complete absence and lack of clarity, be it in squad selection, teamwork. You know, we used to have to score about 4 goals at home, didn't we, to win 4-3 or whatever it was. And away from home, it was hardly worth the travel, really, if I remember rightly. Were you involved in the Salford game at all?
No, actually, I'd went on loan to Mansfield halfway through the season.
You're out on loan for a period, yeah. That was a well-timed loan, to be fair. That was a well-timed loan.
Yeah. I came back into training after the injury, and at the end of the session, we were doing a little bit of running, so fitness work, and being out with Ricardo, we trained for like 2 hours plus, so riddled with muscle injuries. So at the end of this training session, we've done like sprints, and I as I say, I'd just come back from injury, so I almost went 60-70% just to look after myself a little bit. And they pulled us into the office. Ricardo was in there. Dave Kevin was assistant at the time, and said, "Oh, you're not training right. You're not looking after yourself. Oh, you're not approaching training the right way." And I think if you speak to any manager who I've played for, I've always prided myself on my attitude training, my attitude to being a footballer. I was hurt and insulted by it, and kicked off about it. And Rich Hayden was managing the reserve team at the time. He was the only one in that room who stood up for us a little bit. And I remember saying, some of the lads had said, "Oh, like, you're really sharp since you've come back." And I'd mentioned that in this meeting, and they disagreed. So anyway, I've walked out this meeting after falling out with Ricardo and Dave, and I'm hearing Ricardo like smashing the table in anger at what I've said and things. It was just a bizarre time, strange time. So I ended up going to Mansfield not long after, and when I heard about it, I knew it was signed. I had to ring Guy. I was having to sort it out with Guy, of all people, who was probably happy for to push it through at the time. So I heard it was complete. I didn't even say bye to Ricardo. I just went out, and I think he gave us a little bit of dick in the press. Might have been to Lee about us just not having any interest or anything, but I had no interest in speaking to him after that, to be honest. And as I say, I keep a low profile. I always keep good relationships with every manager. So I didn't get on great with Shaun Derry. I've left his clubs twice, left on good terms. Ricardo's the only manager who I've not bothered with. I didn't even bother to text him or anything.
So Ricardo falls on his sword, and I suppose it was bizarre then. I suppose it almost became even more bizarre. So would you have been around, or were you out on loan when Jamie Fullerton came
in? So I was out on loan. Adam Murray was obviously in charge of Mansfield and had offered us like a 2-year contract, which I was happy to sign.
Absolutely.
I wanted to sign.
You would be, wouldn't you?
And then Jamie came in, and Jamie is a Coventry fan, so he knew me well,
Right.
and said I want to bring you back, and obviously I ended up coming back. So that was a story anyway as well. So when I mentioned to my wife that I was coming on this, and I said, I have a couple of things that I want to kind of mention. She said, why don't you mention about the time up at 12 o'clock waiting to go, whether I was going to Notts County for training or going to Mansfield for training. So I'm texting Adam Murray saying, Mansfield have recalled us. I'm going to training with them. I think Rich Dryden rang us actually and said, they want you back tomorrow. You have to come in. So it was like to and fro between the two clubs. I was stressed a bit while lying in bed at midnight, around that time. So just daft things, but it's as a footballer, it's really unsettling. So I ended up going back, and then when that two-year contract was on the table, and then Jamie obviously got sacked after, what was it, 7 or 8 games maybe?
Yeah.
I actually really liked him. I thought he was a good manager.
He's got back in at Walsall quite recently.
Yeah,
the football.
Yeah. As I mentioned, I try to keep good relationships because you never know, in the future. So I made sure to message him when he got the Halifax job. And just different managers. I'll not speak to them regularly, but I'll drop a text if they get a new job or things like that. Just because, as I say, you never know what's going to happen.
So did he bring you back into the team at Notts?
Yeah, we played Wimbledon at home, and he put us straight in. I played at left wing, I think, that game. But yeah, he brought us back and put us straight back in the team.
I think, if memory serves, we won at Stevenage as well, didn't we? Did Philip Valencic hit a screamer or something? I think because the first 2 or 3 games it was okay, wasn't it? And then it just went bang, didn't it? It just went bang in a big way. In a big way.
He kind of divided the group quite early on because the young lads, so anyone under 23, had to do compulsory gym sessions every day, and that kind of ruffled a few feathers. So like they were saying, why obviously the young lads are saying, why don't the senior lads have to do this? That upset a few. So that kind of divided the team. Probably he's thinking that about the best interest for the young lads, but straight away it was senior lads, young lads in the group. And when you're trying to build team spirit, it's probably the wrong way to go. So yeah, he had that divide pretty early on, and quite a few of them weren't keen on his training, but everyone has their own opinion, I suppose. I actually enjoyed his training. I thought he was similar to a coach that I'd had at Sunderland, and I enjoyed working with him, to be honest. So it was obviously just maybe a job too soon. And he obviously had a tough 7 or 8 games there.
As a player, because clearly you're on the inside, as those sort of consecutive defeats started to mount up, clearly the fans got very, very agitated very, very quickly. So as a player, and you're playing, you're back in the fold. What was that like as a player? Now, you spoke about how important confidence is to you. So what's that like as a player when you know the manager is getting pelters? Because he was. There was the unfortunate incident on the side of the pitch. I don't know whether you'd have been playing down that flank or whether he was on the other flank, but when he slipped over twice, and you have kind of the whole ground indulging in poking fun at him. What was that like for you as a player?
Yeah, it was obviously just a tough time. I think he was almost getting the backlash from Ricardo's time, on top of. So the club were in poor form anyway, and and then he's got all Ricardo's players, and probably I can't really remember the games he had, but if it was a tough run of fixtures, he's starting on the back foot straight away. But that the slips and things, there was just a few too many things. I don't know if there's an interview with him where when he talks about his Notts time, where he said he was like living off coffee and all that with the stress. So it must have been like so difficult for him, and obviously difficult for the players as well, being out of form.
Do you remember Accrington away midweek? You may or may not. It was towards the end. It was either one or two defeats before the very end, and I'd been at the game, and I was walking back round the ground, and the quite low level porter cabins, aren't they? They're not porter cabins, but like a very low level dressing rooms there, and there was about 30 or 40 Accrington fans, all kind of like huddled around this level. I was thinking, what's going on? So I just walked over, and you can hear this tirade from the manager to you, the players, and it was like something out of Harry Bassett or whatever. And of course, all these 30 Accrington fans can hear every word. No, I'm just, terrible, really. But look, we all do. You're listening, and you can hear him, and you can hear this outpouring of frustration, venom, you name it, and you think to yourself, blimey, and I just had this vision of we all just sat around on the benches, whatever it is, in the Accrington dressing room with this, like, it was like something out of the Harry Bassett film, in a way it's funny. It wasn't funny, but in a way it was just kind of indicative of the division and the strife that the club was going through at that time.
Excuse me, sorry, I cannot remember that song. I don't know if I wasn't playing. That was one of the things again. So talking about timing with Langy, so Jamie obviously brought us back, and then he got sacked, and Mark Cooper came in, and then I had another injury. I rolled my ankle, so I was out for a few weeks. So I'd went from having a two-year offer on the table to then getting released from Notts County at the end of the season. So yeah, obviously I'm just going to mention that, obviously bringing back with the timing of things and having a bit of luck, but I can't really remember that Accrington game, so I'm not sure if what was the score?
We obviously got beat. I can't remember. I you know what? It's one of them. I can't remember much about the game at all, but I just always remember that. Spoke to Mark Cooper a bit. I like Mark.
Yeah.
And he said to me, this club needs a bomb put in under the place. Is his words. He said, because I think he just about kept us up, didn't he? If I remember right, he scraped a few results. I think we were away at Barnet, and Martin Allen's a good friend of mine. So I was in Martin Allen's office after the game when Mark Cooper came in. So we started chatting, and obviously Martin was a manager at Notts and a very popular one. He said, speak to Macy, he understands the club a bit and all this. So we went out for a curry afterwards with Mark, and he just said, look, he said the club is virtually unmanageable. He said it's virtually unmanageable in its present format, and that's kind of you're bearing that out with your insight to what it was like there at that time.
Yeah. How long was Mark in charge for? It wasn't long, was it? The last 2 months, maybe?
Yeah, they brought him in literally just at the end, and I think he just got enough results to stem that, because I think under Jamie we'd gone about 7 or 8 straight defeats, haven't we? And there was a concern, that this could really be a disaster,
His kind of reign as manager of the club. So obviously early on he was all in. And then rumours started flying about the Forest Green job, where obviously he's a legend there, isn't he? So by the end, like, training maybe the effort that he was putting in as manager kind of waned a little bit. Everyone knew that he was going, and obviously the fans wouldn't have known that. But by the last game we played Carlisle at home and lost 5-0, didn't we? And
yeah.
Mark came in and said, "Listen, I'm off. Well done for staying up, but that's me," and just walked straight back out.
Was that before the game or after the game?
That was after the game, after full time. So obviously everyone was expecting to be absolutely blasted, losing 5-0 at home. This is a disgrace. Shouldn't happen at any level. So we're all kind of expecting to get a bollocking, and he just came in and said, "I just stayed up. Well done. That's me. I'm off," and just walked straight back out. And I've never seen him since.
Yeah, I think at the end, like you just said, he just couldn't wait to get out of there because he was only given a short-term contract anyway till the end of the season. It was kind of like a mini Red Adair firefighting role, wasn't it? And clearly, Boris Green, there must have been negotiations and whatever that were going on at that time.
You released Nobbs from Notts and then signed him for Forest Green.
That's what that's what you. There were a few conspiracy theories going around, weren't there, at that time? I remember. I do. Now you've just said that one. Yeah, you've just said that one.
Yeah.
So during that season, you've already you've mentioned this. You've had a 2-year offer of a contract at Mansfield. Job would be a good one. Exactly the wrong time for you. Ricardo Moniz leaves. And Notts County appoint a Coventry fan who likes you. So Notts then release you. What goes through the minds of a professional footballer at that point?
Just after having a kind of difficult end to the season, I had a strong middle because at Mansfield I was probably playing the best football I played since my first year with Coventry. And when I mentioned about being a confidence player, before every game, the assistant and Adam Murray at Mansfield would say, "Same as last week, you're outstanding." You go out on the pitch, shoulders back, feeling on top of the world, and everything that at that time, everything that I could have sliced a pass, and it would just find someone. Everything was working out for us. And I looked at there, it was obviously 30-minute drive from Mapperley. Obviously not as a huge club, and I'm probably seeing a lot of like negative stuff about it, and the fans that listen, that's kind of not to the club. It's around the people who I've come in contact with around that time. So I don't want to come across like I hate the club or anything like that, because that's absolutely not the case. But yeah, I've lost where I was heading with that. There.
You were talking
what
about
was the question?
The initial question that I'd asked you was, what goes through your mind as a professional footballer when you've had a 2-year contract on the table?
Oh yes. Yeah.
So I was released. Right. What do I do?
So I was keen on going to Mansfield, and I was obviously playing left back every week when Mal Bennon was injured. He had quite a serious knee injury. They were keen to bring me in to play left back, and Mal was going to play left wing. Obviously, I've returned to Notts, so Mal was slotted straight back in at left back. And when it got to the summer, I'd spoke with Adam Murray, and he just said, at the minute we're needing a left-sided centre half. So there's obviously that uncertainty over your future. Am I having to move? Obviously, my wife was working in Nottingham. She had a steady job there. I didn't want to kind of uproot and move somewhere again. So I had two options. Shaun had come back in for us. Who was in charge of Cambridge.
So clearly he rated you, whilst he wouldn't have been coming back in for you.
Yeah. So I went down there, trained for a week, he was pretty honest. He was open. He said, "Listen, we'll have someone in mind who we want to bring in as our first choice left back. But if not, we're keen to bring you in." And I had Fleetwood, who Stephen Presley was in charge of, who I'd played under at Coventry. But that was real last minute, so didn't have a chance to kind of explore that a little bit more. And hearing all the stories about lads out of contract and struggling to find clubs, I was pretty keen on getting sorted quick. Yeah. So I signed with Cambridge, but I actually lived in Nottingham, so I was commuting to Cambridge, and that was another tough time, another story.
You've spoke at several points in this interview about you're a confidence player. As players, as fans, we would all have impressions of footballers being incredibly strong characters. Yeah, you know, you played in front of 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, and you know, ball spears into the stands, you will get verbally abused. Yeah, that's just how it is, you know, at best. You know, it could be a lot worse. So we kind of think that all professional footballers must be mentally incredibly strong. But from what you're saying, you know, certainly in your makeup, confidence is a huge part. I mean, would you say you're a nervous kind of character or not? Or, I mean, the analogy I wanted to draw was at Leicester, in the Martin O'Neill era when I was there, left winger called Steve Guppy.
Yeah,
I remember Steve. Played for England, and up and down the left wing back, put a ball on a sixpence. Very, very, very good player. The nickname the lads had for him in the dressing room was Nervous Norris. Nervous Norris. And so Martin, who is not a shy, shrinking violet when it came to team talks, yeah? So you might be losing 2-0 at half time, yeah? And the paint would be peeling, and, you know, Martin would not be holding anything back. You, all of you, except you, Gups, you've done brilliant. Gups, brilliant. The rest of you, because Steve didn't respond to criticism and he would go back into his shell, hence the nickname Nervous Norris. So Martin would often ball out 10 of the players on the pitch. Gups, you did fine. You keep doing that. And so he was got a little different bits of man management. But I guess the point I'm trying to say is not all footballers are the same. They're not all huge mentally strong. I guess someone like Shaun Derry is incredibly mentally resilient, isn't it? Which is typified in the way he has played his football and his management. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think all, like, any player at that level has got a certain amount of mental strength, because to play at that level you need it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to get the best out of players, some react differently to others. So going back to Shaun, he was one way with every single player. But how I mentioned with Greg, he was the one who, say for example, Shaun has blasted me at half time. Greg would then come in once he's finished and say, "Listen, just do the next thing simple. Get back into the game." So he took the edge off Shaun.
Right. Yeah.
He was
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was a brilliant assistant for him, because he was, as I say, he would make a joke or a laugh out of anything. Brilliant character to have around the place. So when I went to Cambridge, he had Joe Dunn as his assistant, who was very similar to Shaun in terms of very intense, very one way of managing players. So yeah, I've seen, like, I'll not name any players, but kind of lads who have folded a little bit under Shaun's management style. And obviously there's been players where I've been at Cambridge and Notts with them who've went on and done brilliant. So players will react to different managers in different ways. But yeah, for me, at that time, I had more of a liking to Greg, because he was that one who would give us a bit of praise. Greg was actually banned from driving when I was at Notts, so I would take him home to Wetherby after games. So we had a good relationship, and he's just been back, hasn't he? He was with Neil.
Yeah, he was right? Back for a bit and gone again. In terms of turbulence at Meadow Lane, there's always, there has been for about the past 20 years. It is, sadly, revolving doors, you know. So Shaun's no longer with us. And in fact, the subsequent assistant manager that came into him with Ian Birchall, he's also gone as well. He didn't last very long either. So
I've seen that.
It's not great, but we're in the playoffs now, and things are doing well. One other point I want to pick up on before we just have a little chat about where you are now and South Shields. You've clocked up 250 games, whatever it is. You said you felt potentially you could have played higher and completed more games. What do you think was the barrier or the challenge for you to being able to achieve that?
Yeah, I think a little bit of luck. I've obviously mentioned being recalled to Notts. I think had I've stayed at Mansfield and played the following season, it's all speculation, I suppose, but things could have panned out a lot differently. But I ended up going to Cambridge, and that didn't go well. So kind of after 2 tough seasons at Notts, a really, really tough season with Cambridge, lost me way a little bit, lost me love for the game, and ended up just wanting to come home, I suppose, just back to the northeast, and just trying to chase the enjoyment. So, like I've said, now I'm a lot more experienced. I've spoke with a lot of lads who I've played with who are, keen to go higher when at times where they are right now, where they're playing every week and they love the football. That's what they should cherish. If that makes sense, I don't know if I've explained that too well.
No, absolutely.
But, just if you're enjoying your football, you're playing your best football. With a manager who backs you and plays you every week and wants you to do well. Obviously, managers are really they have their own agenda. They want to manage as high as they can as well. But they'll have their group of players who I suppose all managers need to get the best out of the team, don't they? So it's just how the different players deal with different styles.
So you're back in your native northeast. You're at South Shields, and I believe I think Notts County in something like the late 60s or early 70s played South Shields in the FA Cup, believe it or not. A long time. I was only 6 or 7. I think my dad went. It's not necessarily an established footballing hotbed, but your owner has a lot of ambitious plans for the club, and you as a club have been more harshly hit than most by the pandemic, correct?
Yeah. So 8 games, I think it was 8 games away from finishing the season. What, 12 points clear. Just before we went into the first lockdown, we played FC United, who were second. We beat them 5-2 or 5-3 to take us to 12 points with 8 games to go, and then obviously the season was void. So that was a real blow, and I think there was a lot of talk of possible promotion, relegation still. That wasn't the case, and then obviously last season again was void. So hopefully, all being well, things are seeming to look better. This will be a positive year for us. So we're excited to just get back playing, I think, as everyone is, and hoping for a successful season.
You've got Graham Fenton, who many fans would remember as Aston Villa, and while I was at Leicester City as the manager, he's kind of made the move from North Shields to South Shields. Is that like a big divide? Is that a difficult one to move managerial jobs even at that level?
No, I don't think so. There's a rivalry there, but I think there's still 2 or 3 divisions between us. So our big rivals, Morpeth, obviously you played against in
Going to
the
ask you.
trophy last season.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that FA Cup draw, I was hopeful like not at Meadow Lane in the trophy last season. See that would be. But Nobbs played that game, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did. He played at Morpeth. So how did, because so you are one notch below getting into National League South. So that would only be one division from where Notts currently are. So how does that work? Is it professional? 3 or 4 days a week? You've got a coaching role there as well. So you're kind of in a professional role, albeit a bit of a hybrid role between playing and coaching, correct?
Yeah, so initially when I joined, we're training 2 nights a week. And then I was paid kind of 15 hours of coaching, just sort of finding my feet on the coaching side of things. That then developed into a hybrid model, so we're trained 2 nights a week and trained on a Monday and Friday morning for the lads who could. And then this summer they've took the plunge into a full-time model, so all the players who are now signed at Shields are full-time football. And I'm still doing the coaching, so this July I am working with from July, I'll be working with the academy alongside training full-time.
So it kind of shows you the competitiveness. I mean, we would refer to it as non-league, but clearly, you know, it's all, you're all part of a pyramid. So as it stands, you are one notch below National League North, and you are going full time this coming season.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the owner's clearly going to be turning the thumb screws this year, isn't he, in terms of promotion?
Yeah, there's obviously there's big pressure on the team, but you know, we've had what will this be? It'll be our 3rd or 4th season at this level. We're lost in the playoff final the first year I was here, and then we've had 2 seasons void. So we're 4th time lucky, hopefully. But yeah, there's pressure on promotion, but we're a big club at this level, so that's kind of that's part of the perks of playing for South Shields. But that's kind of why I enjoy it so much now, is I've got that experience and I'm a senior player here, and I love kind of having that role and being valued, and it's been the best 2 or 3 years I've had for a long time, so I absolutely love playing. I have a real buzz for going into training and going into the building and just really enjoying my football again.
It's very good to hear, because it's not always playing at the absolute pinnacle of your profession through which you can derive the most enjoyment. And I guess what you're telling us now is you're living proof and an embodiment of that.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, I've just last 2 or 3 years I've kind of been, before I signed for South Shields, I was chasing a team where I felt that I was a big part of, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. And but yeah, as I say, and as you've touched on it doesn't have to be at a high level to enjoy being a footballer. I am in a fortunate position that I'm still full time, quite low down, and I know that, and I appreciate that, and that's why I love going in every day and working hard and trying to be a successful player at this club.
And as well as the playing side, you've been studying for your coaching badges. Is perhaps the coaching route something you're actively looking at in the future?
Yeah, so I've done my B license. Initially, the first year or two of coaching, it was tough. I found things that come naturally to me as a player are hard to communicate to maybe lads or young girls who aren't as switched on with football and maybe just starting out. But yeah, it's been a learning curve and one I'm enjoying, and I'm just seeing where things are going with it at the minute. As I say, the club have given us this role with it, the 16 to 19s from July, which is a huge opportunity and a new challenge, one that I'm sure I'll enjoy doing. So that's kind of been an ambition, coaching ambition, to work with a youth setup. So I've been fortunate enough that that's come to me pretty early. So yeah, it's like an exciting time to be part of the club.
You're clearly very proud of your Northeast roots. You spoke at least one of the loan spells about sort of homesickness, and it can be a challenge moving out of your home environment. I don't know whether you would have come across him or even played against him. We've obviously got a lad from the Northeast. He's a black and white rather than a red and white. Kel Roberts, who came down, released by Newcastle's academy, was at Blythe tearing up National League North, coming at Notts. Clearly looks the business. Had unfortunately long COVID, so it's been a challenge for him this year. Is he someone you come across or had been on your radar or you knew about him? And are there any particular challenges that you think he may, that he has to overcome in terms of moving out of his native Northeast where he's lived all of his life to coming into a new environment?
Yeah, I don't think I've come across him. I played against him. I know of him, and obviously I still follow Notts. I keep an eye on results, and I watched the game against Hartlepool the other week where he's came off, hasn't he? Not after just returning. That's
it.
So he's obviously going through a tough spell at the minute, but as you say, he's from what I hear, I've not seen much, if any of him really. But from what I hear, he's been doing really well when he has played. So how long does he have left? Is he under contract for?
Yeah, we got him on I think it's a 3-year contract. So there's plenty of time. And I think the club have kind of protected their interests, because from what he's shown for us so far, he clearly has the ability to be able to slot in at a higher level. Clearly lots of things have got to happen, and we hope we will get him through the playoffs. But as I say, he's had a particularly tough time with long COVID this year, and we're getting his dad on the show shortly, and very, very partisan Geordies and all the rest of it, and I just wondered if that can be a challenge moving out of a self-contained community like the Northeast, which is something you've had to do, not always easy.
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier on, I was all in with Nottingham,
yes,
and I was really settled there. As I said, I commuted to Cambridge as well because I didn't really want to move. And Lauren, my wife, she has lots of friends in Nottingham who she still speaks to. She still travels down there. So I really settled there. I loved living there. It was from a personal point of view, off the pitch, it was a good time. But I was fortunate that I had those boys around us, the Adam Campbells, Liam Nobles, Louis Langs, who I grew up with. We had a brilliant group there, who I loved spending time with. Which it's kind of, I'm sure he'll have at Notts. He's obviously going through that tough time. How old is he now? He must be 21, 22.
Yeah, 21, maybe 22 now, yeah.
And I know Roy had mentioned it about within football there's more bad times than good, but the good times certainly make it worth it. So I'm sure once he's back and back firing, he can hopefully do a good job for Notts County. Hopefully not against us if we're draw you in the trophy, should you unfortunately not get promoted.
Yeah, good caveat. Yeah, we're all hoping on that. I mean, Hartlepool did a number on us twice this season. They beat us quite easily. In fact, I think there's a lad Shelton at Hartlepool who's from Nottingham, so he's kind of doing the opposite journey up there. But clearly Hartlepool and ourselves will be, well, guaranteed are in the playoffs. It will be interesting to see how all of that pans out. I was going to call you Adam for a minute, aka Roy Carroll. But Blair, thank you ever so much for joining us today. I hope it's helped. Yeah, I hope it, because not every show is, a 1 hour of sheer unbridled joy. Part of why we do these shows is to give fans an insight into what it's like, the behind the mask, pull the curtain. What's the real bubble, and when we had Greg Tempest on, who clearly had some quite serious issues while he was at Notts, and he was a Nottingham boy. I think Fabian Spice had some challenges as well. Those have been some of the shows that have attracted the highest level of interest. Fab and Greg both said it's helped them. So I hope today, has helped you sort of illuminate Notts fans a little bit. There's certainly a lot in there that I didn't know about, and just ready to say thank you very much for taking the time to sit down and talk, not really with me, but I'm just a conduit with all Notts County fans.
No, I appreciate having us on. It might have been some difficult times from my career, but still look back, as I mentioned early on, with a bit of pride. Really, it's a really difficult game to make a career out of, and I've been fortunate to play for some brilliant clubs, and I do look back on it fondly. That Roy, I know I keep mentioning Roy, but he mentioned about the good and the bad times, but loving every minute of it. And I suppose as I'm getting older now, I appreciate it a little bit more. I'm still only 29, so still young. Still another 10 years in this.
I was going to say, you've got plenty of years. If you're Kevin Ellison, you've got about 14 years left, haven't you? He's in a playoff final in a week or two's time.
Yeah, so hopefully I'm still playing for Shields, so obviously my hometown team, and climb up through the league. So, but yeah, look back on it fondly and would only wish the club the best. So, thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much indeed. Take care, Blair.